The battle was raging when Kevin ran toward Gabimaru while Sajiri touched his shoulder, insisting that he tie his hands for the fight. Although the first attack from the giant weapon-wielding enemy hit its mark, the weapon shattered upon impact. However, he quickly sprang into action with another weapon, which also broke when it struck Gabimaru. Despite this, Gabimaru remained standing and counterattacked with his ball and chain, but this weapon too broke. Finally, the villain lunged with a spear, though this also had little effect. At that moment, Gabimaru had already tied his hands but still managed to catch the attack, using the weapon's pull as leverage to throw the villain into the air. Afterward, the weapon fell while Gabimaru landed on the ground. Following this, Gabimaru kicked one of the spears, hitting the monk and causing him to fall. Afterward, Gabimaru complained about the difficulty of fighting with his hands tied, surprising Sajiri, who was impressed that everything could be resolved with a single blow. However, everyone was shocked when the villain stood up laughing, revealing that his armor was directly connected to his skin and his mask fell, exposing his evil nature. At the end of the battle, we see that Gabimaru caused chaos and brutally killed the giant weapon wielder. On the other hand, we see that Gabimaru was still tied up without a scratch. Afterward, Gabimaru approached Sajiri and suggested that they start looking for the elixir to make up for lost time, which she viewed with disbelief. But she showed her hands to prove they were still tied and then tried to draw Gabimaru's attention by unsheathing her sword. However, instead of fighting, he took the prisoner's head to prove he was already dead, then bid farewell and returned to the ship, adding that he could finally go home and take a hot bath. Later, we see Gabimaru commenting that he expected a fight, but Kishio reminded him that they were neither enemies nor allies, just doing their job by taking the villain's head. After that, he told his colleague, the executioner, to be careful on the way back because many had been lost. The executioner said he didn't need to worry about himself, adding that the person truly in danger was Gabimaru because he had to watch over him, and mentioned that compared to him, he felt lucky to be able to go home. After that, Kishio remarked that many things would happen. Some would form alliances while others would try to seduce their executioners, and some had already started killing. This was proven when a giant villain killed someone in the forest. Before leaving, Kishio predicted that the situation would change within a few hours and more than half of the villains would die, adding that most of the villains there could be replaced, so it wouldn't be surprising if the shogunate contacted Gabimaru's clan for more warriors. He also informed Sajiri about the rumor that the performance of the people on this mission would determine the next executioner's leader. After conveying all this information, he left with a warning not to let her guard down in the presence of all the villains. Then, he saw Gabimaru and reminded himself that he was dangerous despite them traveling without incident in recent days. As he sank into his thoughts, he suddenly snapped back to reality when he realized that Gabimaru was attacking him, and he barely managed to block the attack in time. He then asked why. He was doing something, and with a cold look in his eyes, he confessed that he wished he could end his life painlessly. Meanwhile, Sajiri stared sharply into his eyes, thinking that she had finally found his true nature. After that, he recalled the day when his parents decided to leave the village, adding that at that time the village leader said that emotions make a person weak, and unless one is strong, he cannot protect anything, let alone valuable things. With that thought, Gabimaru charged at Sajiri and she said that it was against the rules to attack her. In that situation, he revealed that everything was about priorities and his goal was to find the elixir before the people from his village came and ruined everything. At that moment, he mentioned that he would not be an obstacle to achieving his goal. After that, Gabimaru continued his attack and Sajiri saw his extreme and abnormal sense of reason and morality. She believed that the ninja should be executed immediately, but somehow she hesitated without knowing why. Then we see that Gabimaru also faced the same dilemma and knew that he should have killed her at that moment, but he also hesitated. As expected, the boy did not understand why, because his most important goal was to reconnect with his wife. At that moment, Gabimaru remembered that in the past his wife had said that it was natural not to want to kill people. She said that he should eliminate his own emotions because they were a void. When he heard that, he lovingly mocked her, saying that she couldn't call herself that when she blushed with just a little kiss. Next, she said that it was important to be true to his own feelings, so if he made a decision based on that, she would follow him no matter what. At that moment, Gabimaru remembered that his wife reminded him that he had feelings and emotions. After all that, we return to the present and see that the current fight continues and Gabimaru did not manage to end it when he had the chance. He realized that his abilities had returned and knew that it would not help him survive this ordeal. Therefore, he recalled the village leader's words that helped him become cold and broke Sajiri's sword to deliver a fatal blow, but she blocked it with her sheath. At that moment, Gabimaru confessed that he didn't care about the fate of the other criminals, but killing her would also hurt him. So, he asked her to let him end his life peacefully. However, Sajiri was skeptical that he still had emotions. Then we see that he struggled to end his life, and the dark apparition of the village leader urged him to be ruthless. However, in the end, the essence or thought or mystical apparition or whatever of his wife appeared, and Gabimaru forgot his horrifying thoughts and stopped before finishing off Sajiri. In that instance, he admitted that deep down, Gabimaru was just a product of his environment, and because of that, he hesitated to attack. Shortly after, Gabimaru began to cry, calling himself weak for not being able to kill Sajiri. But she said that it was not weakness, but the beginning of strength. He then said that avoiding emotions is like turning away, and he knows this because it was he who indirectly taught him to face his demons. As she rose, Sajiri told Gabimaru that she would overlook his crimes and challenge him to face his wrongdoings and emotions to reclaim his life. She added that she wanted to be by his side to see if it was possible for someone like him to have such a life. She said that although their relationship had not changed, Gabimaru was no longer the same, and on the other hand, Fuchai was surprised to see the statues created on the island, which indicated that long ago, there was a civilization in that place. While looking on in awe and confusion, he also approached one of the butterflies to examine it, and one of them bit him. When that happened, he immediately had a vision of what could happen if he let the poison flow through his body. With that in mind, the swordsman cut off his hand without hesitation and destroyed the creature. Shortly after, they both witnessed flowers starting to grow and more strange creatures appeared, including a giant with eyes on its hands. However, back with the main team, Gabimaru and Sajiri faced a fish-headed creature, and without hesitation, our Gabimaru put on his mask and prepared to fight. After that, we saw a scene from the past when Fuchai arrived on the island on a raft. They talked about their lives, and shortly after, they entered the forest, and after walking a bit, they encountered giant insects and even larger animals. However, back in the present, Gabimaru and Sajiri found many large animals, and she was frightened, unlike Gabimaru, who immediately used his fire power to defeat some of the monsters. Amidst the chaos, Sajiri was exposed to one of the creatures, and still in shock, she couldn't react. Even so, Gabimaru managed to save her. After that, Yasuhira and her partner arrived to help, and when the battle ended, Jusio said it was impressive to see Gabimaru defeat so many monsters alone. After discussing many things about the insects and creatures on the island, Gabimaru formed an alliance with them. Amidst all this, Sajiri realized she hadn't made any progress since arriving on the island, and due to the stress of the situation, she fainted. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Toma and Chobe, two brothers, arrived on the island to seek the elixir of life. At the same time, we learned about their past and discovered that Toma had managed to join the Sassyman clan and become an executioner, which allowed him to accompany Chobe. As the two walked on the island, they encountered various animals, but fortunately, they worked together to get past them. Back with the main group, Gabimaru decided to carry Sajiri in his arms to prevent her from getting hurt. Not long after, Sajiri woke up, and when she left the cave where she had been, she found Gabimaru preparing food for everyone. Then, the characters started talking about the island, and Gabimaru mentioned that while looking for food supplies, he found very interesting things and thus explained that all the flowers and vegetation in that place grew from human bodies. However, he mentioned that the ingredients he used for the food were ordinary plants. After that, the characters continued to theorize about the creatures, suggesting that they might be demigods who had come into contact with supernatural substances that caused their transformations. Later in the afternoon, Samurai Genji met with her and told her that she had to leave because she was not qualified to be on the island. He then suggested that she should try to restore her role as a woman in the clan and have children to ensure the lineage. In the midst of this situation, it seemed, and he commented, that it would be best for her to stay because for some reason, Gabimaru sympathized with her. If violence broke out or he lost control, Sajiri could come or defeat him. Meanwhile, elsewhere, we meet Tenza and Narugai, who still haven't disembarked on the mysterious island. Suddenly, tentacled creatures attacked them, and in the midst of this, Narugai felt that he should perish there as punishment for inadvertently causing the death of his comrades. However, Tenza made him reflect and rushed to protect his companion, and after a tense moment, they both found a raft and reached the shore of the island. After that, they both dried off and cleaned themselves, and this way, Tenza was shocked to discover that Narugai was a girl. A few minutes later, she said that she was interested in him and asked him to propose to her when they got off the island. This way, they both planned to obtain the elixir of immortality so they could return and live peacefully. That night, Sajiri and Gabimaru had a deep conversation where they talked about what it means to know oneself and how difficult everything is. As a result, the next day, she gave an answer to Genji and said that she would stay because she wanted to become better, which was, of course, not well received by Genji, and he decided to attack her. However, suddenly a large man severely injured Genji, and we could see that it was the same man who killed his executioner shortly after they arrived on the island. Then we saw a flashback where we learned that the large man was born as a big child who, from an early age, had the power to take lives, and his name was Rioda. Back in the present, the giant took part of Genji's body and threw it. After that, he tried to hurt Sajiri, but Gabimaru intervened and kicked the enemy's face hard. Meanwhile, Sajiri ran to tend to her injured comrade, whose body was partially destroyed. At the same time, Gabimaru faced Rioda. They both fought, and Gabimaru realized that his opponent's body was very strong and durable. Meanwhile, Sajiri did everything she could to stop Genji's bleeding, but he said it was useless because his wounds were too severe. Then, the warrior told his comrade that she could follow the path she desired and that she had the courage of a man as well as the sensitivity of a woman, and that made her strong. After that, she joined the fight against the giant and supported Gabimaru in the duel. This way, Sajiri managed to cut off the enemy's finger. However, the situation quickly became complicated again because she couldn't cut through her opponent's skin. Then, Gabimaru and his allies tried to hurt the giant, but it was futile. In the midst of this, the monster captured Gabimaru and slammed him to the ground. Fortunately, he managed to get back up, but the damage was so great that his body began to bleed. At that moment, the giant attacked again, and Sajiri tried to protect her comrade at that critical moment. Gabimaru managed to use pure wit, and with this, he delivered a very precise blow that was able to divert the beast's powerful attack. After that, Gabimaru stood up and, together with Sajiri, they planned a combined attack to end the battle. Gabimaru then used his fire power and launched many hot projectiles towards his enemy. Although none of the attacks succeeded, he achieved his goal by setting the surrounding trees on fire, causing the beast to start running out of air due to the smoke. As the creature fell to its knees on the ground, Gabimaru took advantage of it to finish it off. At that moment, he managed to calm all his emotions and beheaded his opponent calmly, allowing Rioda to die peacefully. After that, the two of them fled from the fire while looking into the distance at the already dead Genji, whose empty body would soon be consumed by the flames. Soon after, we saw how the beasts, also called demigods of the island, appeared and approached the fire, showing that they had primitive minds. After that, Sajiri and Gabimaru met with Yasuhira and Senta, who were witnessing something horrific that we couldn't see. At the same time, elsewhere, Toma talked about how strange the island was, because instead of hosting gods or divine beings, the island was inhabited by terrifying monsters. Not long after, we saw that they encountered two slender women kissing, and when they saw humans, they went crazy. Then one of the women commented that it was rare for humans to reach that place, so she invited them to a party. However, her friend got angry and said no because it was disgusting, as they were mere humans. After that, we saw that the woman transformed into a man and prepared to fight with Toma. At the same time, the main group found a village and soon met a hooded girl who was chased by Gabimaru to ask her some questions, but the girl quickly fled. Thus, the chase began, and in the midst of it, a creature made of trees appeared to protect the little girl. Without hesitation, the main group decided to have some fun, and Yasuhira confronted the monster while Gabimaru and Sajiri chased the little girl. Finally, Gabimaru and his allies managed to capture the little girl, but quickly realized that she was not an ordinary child because she possessed great power. However, Gabimaru managed to subdue her using large vines found around. In the midst of this, the girl began to cry, so Sajiri asked Gabimaru to release her. After that, we saw how she took care of the little girl with great affection and hugged her. After that, they met with Yasuhira and Senta, who had managed to subdue the monster, and suddenly the tree creature spoke and asked them to release the girl in exchange for a lot of food. Yasuhira quickly said that they already had enough supplies and were not interested. When the creature heard this, it doubled the offer and offered a hot spring bath so they could rest. When Yasuhira heard this, she immediately agreed, and the group was forced to follow. Shortly after that, in the creature's village, they explained that they had been living with the little girl in the village for over 1,000 years. After that, they showed where the bathroom was, and the first to use it were Yasuhira and Sajiri. And then the mysterious creature explained some things to the characters and began saying that the elixir of life is real and that the island is named Kataku, inhabited by supernatural and immortal beings. Furthermore, it explained that the elixir they are seeking is called Tam, and that the place is divided into 3 parts. The first is the coastal area called Asham, the second is the central part called Ojo, and the last is the oral area where Tan is located. However, the monster explained that if they continue searching for the substance, they will soon encounter the Tensing, who are perfect and immortal beings tasked with eliminating intruders on the island. Meanwhile, elsewhere, we see that Showa and Toa are doing everything they can to fight the person they encountered earlier. Unfortunately, that person is a Su Tensen, making him immortal and thus easily defeating them. After that, he throws them into a well on the island that transforms them into flowers, and in this way, they are used as the base for creating the elixir of life. However, fortunately, both Toa and Showa survive despite being injured from the Great Fall and quickly prepare to get out of the hole. But back to the main group, the tree man tells them everything that was previously explained and also says that people who turn into flowers are used as the base for tan. After that, he tells them all this is a sign of mercy because when they meet Tensen, they will surely die. And after that, the creature introduces itself as Oko and says that the little girl's name is Mai. Next, Gabimaru decides to take a hot bath, so Sajiri follows to ensure he doesn't do anything wrong. When the two reach their destination, they meet Mai, who is also about to bathe, and she is surprised to see them. However, Gabimaru doesn't mind much as he is used to bathing with others since his village has public baths. After that, we see that Sajiri realizes that neither Gabimaru nor the little girl knows how to wash properly, so she decides to help them to truly relax. While she scrubs them, Gabimaru remembers that his wife once did the same and recalls that she said he must truly rest from time to time, otherwise he wouldn't have the energy to face important battles. After the bath, Gabimaru realizes he can rest but quickly focuses on the next goal to see his wife sooner. Then, we see a scene from the past and get to know Tenza's life before he became an Aseeman. He was a child treated like trash by the people in his village. We then see him sitting near a tree while people pass by, hurling harsh words at him. Tenza recounts that his family was poor and his parents had no desire to raise a child, so he had to fend for himself. Thus, it is revealed that he lived as a small-time criminal for most of his life. When he was hungry, he would simply steal or take food from others, and that was his life for some time. He soon concluded that this was the right way to live because he felt very free. However, one day he encountered some swordsmen who wanted to fight, so Tenza fought them and, to everyone's surprise, he managed to defeat them, leaving them terrified. They begged for forgiveness from the boy, but then Tenza realized his strength and wanted to continue punishing his victims. However, he was stopped by someone from the Seaman clan. Then, we see Narugai and Tenza walking on the beach with the goal of finding a way out. But after walking for quite a while, they realized they were lost. Narugai said that if they walked aimlessly, they would not achieve anything. Tenza then commented that if they went into the forest, they would be in danger. He also mentioned that previously he wouldn't have cared, but now that he knew Narugai was a woman, he wanted to avoid danger. When Narugai heard this, she blushed and said that they should hurry so she could marry him. Tenza responded that it was too soon in many ways and mentioned that if they wanted to do that, at least they should get out of that mysterious place. However, Narugai seemed not to hear those words and continued to praise Tenza's manly attitude. Suddenly, they both felt a presence beside them, and when they turned, they realized that someone had appeared out of nowhere in the sea. That was when we met Tensensai, who appeared there because he sensed many disturbances in the area. He immediately said that he had found many corpses of creatures called Zachin, and since he could not find the culprit, he asked Tenza if it was his doing. Tenza quickly realized that the person had an evil aura, and his suspicion was confirmed when the individual changed from a man to a woman in an instant. Without hesitation, Tenza and Narugai decided to flee into the forest on the island. However, Tensensai said it was futile and soon appeared in front of them and attacked, sending them flying. After that, he tried to do the same to Narugai, but she managed to dodge the enemy's attack. Tenza was surprised and said that Narugai moved very well even though she was only human. Narugai approached her friend to help him. The creature then said that he would finish them off because he didn't like disturbances on the island. As he was about to attack, Tenza moved ahead and cut both of his eyes with his sword. The creature praised Tenza's speed despite being human. Tenza felt scared because his cut had no effect. He immediately retreated and told Narugai to be on guard. After explaining a brief plan to escape, Tenza cut the enemy again and felt proud of his speed. Both of them ran towards the forest, but Tenza quickly caught up with them, reminding them that running away was futile. Just as the creature was about to lose control, Tenza's teacher, Sion, appeared and used his sword to take down the enemy. The three of them managed to escape successfully. As they avoided plants and various obstacles, Narugai wondered how Sion could run at that speed despite his damaged and almost blind eyes. Tenza explained that Sion was a master, and even though he was blind, he could sense his surroundings through his hearing and smell. Once the situation calmed down, the three stopped, and Tenza formally introduced his teacher, saying that he had taught him everything he knew about swordsmanship, and concluded the introduction by stating that his teacher was an extraordinary warrior. When Tenza finished his story, Sion scolded Tenza for not cutting down the enemy properly and said that he needed to concentrate more next time. At that moment, Tenza mentioned that his teacher acted like that even when they were on a dangerous island being chased. Afterward, he commented that he had already completed his task on the island and wanted to go home. With that thought in mind, he looked for his bag to leave but soon realized that there was no current to take him off the island. Worse, he felt the presence of dangerous creatures, so he decided to look for his friends to find a way out and fight whatever they had to face. When Tenza heard all that, he was excited because that was what he and Narugai were doing. They quickly proposed finding a way out together. However, Sion said that they first needed to eliminate the girl because she was a criminal and might cause problems. After saying that, he commented that the executioners had a duty to eliminate criminals who caused trouble or tried to disrupt order. He also revealed that the criminal assigned to him tried to seduce him, so he had to eliminate her, and therefore they had to deal with Narugai. Tenza then said that he wanted to help the girl. After a brief discussion where Tenza gave good arguments, Sion decided to let the girl join them. At that moment, he remembered that from the beginning, Tenza never cared about anyone, but now he was starting to care, which made him happy to see his student growing as a person. After that, Narugai thanked him and called him teacher, but he said that he wasn't allowed to call him that yet because he hadn't taught him anything. Later, the characters discussed how to defeat or escape from Sijin. Suddenly, Tenza appeared to fight. Sion, without hesitation, pulled his allies and ran, but a few seconds later, Tenza commented that running was useless because the creature would find them. After saying that, he drew his sword and prepared to strike the enemy. However, this time Tenza avoided the attack and said that he had gotten used to Tenza's speed. Nevertheless, Tenza used a special technique and attacked again, but the result was the same. A few seconds later, the creature counterattacked and injured Tenza with its supernatural power, causing a fatal wound. After that, there's a flashback scene where Tenza asks his brother why he was chosen as a student. The warrior replies that he saw potential in Tenza and wanted to help him become a swordsman. The two then continue their training, but Tenza is frustrated because he can't land a single blow and his swordsmanship skills are nil. It's then that Shin notices his student's emotions and says that if he continues to train with discipline, his potential will develop. However, Tenza doesn't believe he has those qualities because people in his village always told him he was worthless. He then says he wants to leave, isn't interested in living a disciplined life, and wants to live as he pleases. The warrior responds that it's fine and Tenza can leave, but on the condition that he lands one blow. Since then, a few days pass, but Tenza is tired of the challenge and decides to leave on his own. However, he is soon stopped by Aizen, who asks if he has managed to land a blow on Shin. Tenza replies that it's nonsense and that he will leave anyway. Instead of stopping him, Aizen says he can go, but first, he must escort him to a place, and the young man agrees. Shortly after, the two arrive at a cemetery where they find the grave of Shion's former student. At that moment, he realizes that in the past, the student wasn't fully committed to learning like he is now. As a result, after some time, the young man left the dojo and, when he returned, had become a bandit. He had the misfortune of being the one tasked with ending his life. Furthermore, he realizes that the young man's last words were an apology to Shion, and as usual, it left a mark on the swordsman who since then promised to fully commit to teaching. Aizen then tells Tenza that if he leaves, he will likely suffer the same fate as that young man, and Shin doesn't want that to happen. After that, Aizen tells Tenza that if he wants to leave, he should at least land one blow on his teacher. At that moment, Tenza remembers Shion's words and decides to put his all into his training. Thus, we see how the young man trains hard and takes the training seriously. While training, he wonders when the time will come when he has something he truly wants to protect. In a scene transition, we return to the present and see that Tenza is injured. He realizes that Narugai and his teacher are in great danger, so he immediately gets up from the ground and attacks his opponent repeatedly. At that moment, he realizes that his only goal is to protect his allies, even if it means sacrificing his life. Thus, Tenza fights valiantly against Shijin. On the other hand, Shion tries to help him, but his student forbids him and asks him to leave with Narugai. Realizing the danger the warrior is in, Shion decides to follow his request. Tenza fights to the end, and after some time, Shijin manages to kill the young man. Shijin comments on how strong Tenza was, while Narugai cries and screams at Shion for not helping his friend. Shion replies that the creature was far stronger than them, so at that moment, they couldn't do anything. However, he promises to avenge Tenza's death in the future. Finally, we see a flashback where Tenza, after a difficult process, successfully disarms his master. Because of this, he asks Shion to continue teaching him. Shion smiles and agrees. After that, we return to the present, and with deep sadness, we see Tenza's lifeless body. On the other hand, we see Senta experiencing conflict due to the confusion from the information obtained at Oko's house. So, Sajiri suggests that he rest, as it is clear he is experiencing information overload. As expected, he takes her advice. After bathing, we see Senta sleeping in front of Gabimaru, while Gabimaru keeps watch all night. At that moment, Gabimaru takes the opportunity to go to the Ore area. At that moment, he recalls Senta's earlier warning that it was unwise to enter that territory without a solid plan, but he wants to check it out for himself.